Okay, so I'm gonna show how to make this weapon inside of Unreal Engine with all the modifiers, so you can change any modifier that you want to. So if I apply now, you can see it changed. Also the damage, you see 4. If I just go back and change it to class the suppressor empty and apply. Now damage is 10, so you can see. Also change the trigger rate depending on in this case, the handwork. So if I change it to this one and also the trigger to straight, I'm gonna shoot really fast. But instead, if I just change to classic trigger and the arm and reload, you can see now there's like also the VFX or shooting has also changed. So now doesn't matter how much I click, it has a way longer cooldown. So this let's and also includes if I just reload, you can see I have 14 of ammo. If I empty this and change to magazine the light one, I set it to reload by steps. So if I press reload, 2, 4, 6, and finally 7. So yes, it does work. Also, there's some ammo here you can also get. So let's get started with everything. Okay, so first of all, I have a weapon actor. Just drag here, weapon asset actor, and drop here. So if I just delete this one and this one instead, now if I specify which weapon asset I want to use, you can see it's has been built. And here on components, you can see I can change in runtime. So I can see how different modification looks like. Okay, so in order to make all of this, I'm not gonna recreate it from scratch, but I'm gonna show step from step. So first of all, what I did was in the content, I created weapons, M4, architecture, and create uh, a data asset named from weapon architecture, and also create all the different slots for each weapon. So if I open the map and go to slots here, you can see I have the slot for handwork, magazine, grips, dog, and all of them. So then I created a different enum for one, each one of them. So for example, for muzzle, I have here the different muzzle you can have. Same for magazine, handguard. Also, if I set it to change any name over here, for example, on the front grip, instead of empty, I say, for example, uh, light or, yeah, for example, light and save. If I go here and here, you can see front grip. Now it's not empty, but light. And also, when I come here and go to front grip, uh, oh yes, this hasn't changed because this isn't reading it from the enemy itself, but from data info over here. That here, this is what tells the UI too low. So if I come here to front grid, you can see it doesn't say light, it says empty. So I think here, save, come here, and you can see it has changed now. So I'm gonna turn it back to empty, save, and over here again, back to empty. So first of all, as I said, you need to put all the, you create an enum with all the slots you want to be modified, and then a different enum for each uh, slot. So then right click and go to miscellaneous and to data asset. And here, weapon architecture. So just double click it, select, and this would be a data asset architecture. So it will show like this, just architecture and none. So you would say here the slot enum, and as soon as you type it, you can see all of them appear. So simply would be a fill every one of these. So once you have that, it will end up resulting in something very similar to this one. And this is all you have to do with the architecture. So next, you have to create a weapon characteristics. So simply do right click, blueprint class, and here weapon charac weapon. Let me check weapon asset characteristics. If you want to use the default weapon component, you have to use this weapon asset default characteristics in order to use the default, the built-in weapon component that comes. For example, if I just go to my blueprints and first person blueprint character, if I come here and just type weapon, you see this weapon component is the one that is built in on C++. So you can extend it like I did, and I will show you later this weapon component. You can see that extend from weapon component. So in order to do that, you must use, let me go back, weapon asset characteristic, a default characteristic, not this one. This one is in case you want to make your own weapon component. You don't, and some functionalities that you don't need, you can use this one instead of this other default. So you would just create the default characteristic for this tutorial. And once it's made, you open up and just create how many variables you want. So also you have a lot of uh, function you can override to give some, basically access some variables. So for example, the magazine capability, I simply create and simply override. It would be something like this here, and magazine capability, they would show like this. So you can right click and promote your variable, or simply a new variable and use the int type or whatever type you want to use. And then you can just plug in here. So magazine capability, connect it here, and that would be everything you need. So you don't actually need to use this variable. Maybe if you want, you can do some math or some interface call or just what feels better for the project. But it's if you want custom behavior, you have to override these ones. So now if I go through many of these, you can see are just some override, some variables for the weapon use. So using magazine, ammo, reload per iteration. So pretty simple. Over here also on the event graph, there's nothing because there's not really need for it to be. Also, you can see here I have add flashlight and set eatable material. So if I open this up, we'll go later into this, but as you can see, simply get a mesh and on the first material element creates and assigns a dynamic material instance. And on flashlight has no input, just get the actor owner, add a spotlight component, and returns that component. So next step is if I come here, you can see this weapon asset M4. So in order to create that, just right click and weapon asset. You have here weapon asset, and you can create weapon asset, for example, AK or whatever weapon you want to make. And it will show up something like this. So I'm gonna show mine. So instead of the AK, I'm gonna show the weapon asset M4. So basically, I have a build visuals, which this does is basically builds all the nodes from these nodes to create the visual aspect of the weapon. So also you have the execute operation that is more think of it in just to set variables like you can see magazine, trigger rate, recoil. All of these are setting the variables. So I'm gonna go first, standing graph. I'm gonna go to the details panel, and here you can see you only have a characteristics that is a class. You click it and will show all the characteristics. So I just use my weapon characteristic M4. And then if I expand this, expand all, you can see I have the components and also is reflected. So if I change to DMR, you can see that sign change in real time. So now let's go to default. And as you can see, it has all the same variables as the here mentioned. So if I go to class default, you can see the structure is basically the same over here than here. So yes, that also works as you can see. You can change the default value like oscillation, the custom reload, execution timing, using magazine, ammo, the trigger rate, mode, the zoom. So for example, now we can go to the actual graph nodes, Modular, and you can see, for example, magazine capability, the default is set to 0, but there's a reason for it. Basically, because in all executions will be, you can see here is being overridden always in the select indicator by mod magazine. You can see in each step it's always gonna return some value. So in order to do something like this, I can come here and, for example, let's say I want to change the zoom. So yes, right click and zoom. You can see properties, default, zoom. Also, if I just come here and display properties, you will see the custom functions we defined here at flashlight and set hitable material here in properties. Then I'm gonna go to default, for example, and say I wanna change, for example, the zoom, and this is basically it. So you just need to connect the output to the expression, and for the input, you can simply select integer by mod. So if I connect this here, and I say, and click here, you can see on the right side down, you can see slot and says this option with all the enums, all the modification slots we have. So handguard, target sign, grip, stock, front grip, muzzle. So and from each you select, you can see there's also the options displayed. So if I change it to stock, you can see now it's into class empty, classic, stockless, light, DMR, and working with pretty much everything. So you can select by the enum, by the mod applied to that slot, and also comes with many more options like select bool, select class, double, int, and object. So if I go back here to my weapon characteristic, you can see I have a shake and Niagara. While the shake is a class reference of camera shake base type, Niagara is a Niagara system object reference. So I can also override those in the editor. So if I shake, you can see here appears, and also the same with Niagara. And you can see I have these both and they appear as unknown type. So I'm just gonna right click and refresh, and you can see camera shake base and Niagara system. So both of them work. So if I want to override, let's say just uh, select class by mode, you can see here appears, and you can now choose the build the weapon. So like that. If I just come over here and say see the weapons, like that, you can see a bunch of attach, tag, generate, and select. So basically what it does is pretty simple. This run from this node all the way back until it finds an executable node. So it would just go from this visual to this trigger, and this gonna go to look for the parent of to attach these children to the parent, and the result will be the actual parent. So let's go to the beginning of it. So I basically have this mesh with all these sockets. So as you can see, I made these sockets so I can attach them more easily. So for example, this stock, I have all these stocks individually. So if I change it here, you can see it looks good also. So I modify the socket to be where I want it to be. Same with magazine and handguard. So if I go here, I found that body, and let me remove of these preview static meshes so you can see how it actually looks, the just the body. Okay, so this is basically the body of the weapon. So if I go here, I select this body, and generate a static mesh component. And this what does is basically, well, as it says, it generates a static mesh component with the static mesh passed by this input. Let me refresh this. Okay, as you can see. Okay, now let's continue with building the visuals, so the actual meshes that it has. So basically, you need these build visuals, and it goes from right to left, just the same as the execute operation. But I'm gonna get it start from here, from the beginning. So and this shouldn't appear as index, but as asset. So okay, so now we go by building these all these assets. So you need the build visuals, and I'm gonna start over. So here I have the static mesh body. So what it basically does is loads this static mesh M4 body, and then this spawns a static mesh component with this static mesh load. So if I open this up, this is basically the body that is going to be spawning. And you can see all these sockets that it has. So if I come here and, for example, to the hangar and change here, for example, to hangar classic, you can see it snaps perfectly there. So if I now change it to the next one, also snap perfectly. So you should have the sockets where all different mods should be attached to. So if I go back here, so to that static mesh component spawn, I'm gonna add this add flashlight, which if in case you don't remember, if I go to my weapon characteristic, you can see add flashlight is a function that has no input, but does return the spawn light component. So if you can see spotlight component reference. So if I go back here on the return value, you can see object of class spotlight component. So I can call also some spotlight component functions that this is actually right now in as an experimental. So maybe don't if you need to access or modify something like intensity or something, it would be better at the moment to just uh, create a new function, for example, set intensity, and just ask for a spot spotlight component, and I'm gonna call this light, and from here just set intensity, for example, and I'm gonna pass this here, new intensity. So compile, save, and if I go back here and I go by the intensity, you see this shows up. If I click, now it's created, and you can see here it has the input of light. And in case you don't give it any return value, return type, or yeah, return value, it will use the input as output. So if I enter this here, this output would be the same as this light. So it would be like connecting from here. And this new intensity, there are two ways to actually set it up. You can use a select literal by mode. If you want it constant, you can also literal integer and give it the value over here and connect this to the new intensity. And also you can just override this and say, for example, 50. And this would also work. So yes, this will be the way to work right now because a object function to any object class is currently experimental. So you are better using this beta function. So next thing I do is from this flashlight that is being spawned, I'm gonna give it a tag named flashlight. So if I come here and go to the component I have over here, and you can see here is everything spawned. So this one is not showing, but if I click it, does it get it? It doesn't seem like. No, it doesn't get it, but it does get. Yep. I'm gonna show you that later then. So then next step is attach to the flashlight socket. So basically to the M4 body static mesh component, it's gonna be the parent, and this flashlight is gonna be the children, and it's gonna be attached to the attachment name that, if you remember, is this one over here. So then this parent input is gonna be also the result. So that's why this result is connected to this other parent. It's not needed to be done this way. You could simply create here another build visuals, and for example, connect this here, and because the flashlight does not show up instantly, I'm gonna connect better, I think, this one over here, and disconnect this one. Okay, so now you can see it's only spawning the handguard with this other component that basically follow the same principle. That is basically select by object next. I mean select static mesh by the modifier next. Spawn a static mesh component. Give it a tag. In this case, I'm changing also the material, so you can see here this material have that mm, this heat effect. Then to this handguard is gonna be attached the front grid, also selected by the modifier, and also that handguard is gonna get the mass, uh, the muzzle, also load here, apply to this mesh component, and finally add the muzzle tag. So just to show, I could just add this static mesh component, connect this here, and would work exactly the same. But I think it's just better to do it this way. So yes, I think like this is like the best way to do it in order to make it easy to just read. So, and that's pretty much the same uh, method for everything. Load the stock, found a static mesh component, and give it a tag. Also, if there is no static mesh load, for example, you can have an empty front grid, it will not spawn this other static mesh component. So there wouldn't be a static mesh component just taking space or anything. So if I go here, you can see if I say I want to front grid the vertical, for example, you can see I have this component, this handguard with two child objects, which are the the muzzle and the front grid. So if I come back here and just disable that, so no front grid and no muzzle, you can see now those static mesh are component are not spawning, so works just fine. And next is pretty much all the time the same. So load, bound, give a tag, and attach to parent. You can see you can attach. There's no limit on how to attach objects. As you can see, I hit the handguard and attach to it the front grid and the muzzle, and then attach that handguard to my body again. So works just fine. Next, this tag is pretty simple. What it does is simply add the component tag. So if I go here and I search for tag, you can see handguard, stock, grip, market sign, trigger, and this is helpful when you're gonna use it inside your blueprints to give it faster access. to all those components to get references or whatever you need in your project. So that's basically this weapon asset. So I'm gonna close and I'm gonna go over the VP fire weapon, which is basically a weapon component, a weapon asset component that comes built in. So if I go to my event graph, you can see, for example, here on event reload, it's gonna add a delay of 1 second and continue reloading, which is basically when I play and change this one to the magazine to the light, so it doesn't reload all at once. You can see 2, 4, 6, 7. That's that time between an increase and another is basically this one. So if I decrease it to 2.1, I mean 0.2, and I my bad, I reload too fast. Go to magazine, light, apply, and now choose this. I mean, yes, you can see it goes faster now. So now all of this is nothing actually, just from this project. So just a bit of control over oscillation, and yes, nothing pretty important. So you can see you have also overrival properties like can trigger on initialized weapon, generate initialization data, begin reload, on jump, on fail reload, on trigger fail. I have overridden already the weapon build. So the only thing it does is update the scale of the IDO camera shake and create the material instance. I mean, yes, create the material instance for one and disable collision of for all components. Then the action we need to focus right now is this event trigger. So first, we're gonna make the effect. This one is with my material as well as this one. So I'm gonna show this fire trace is just a simple uh, sphere trace by channel and send impact. So pretty all of this is just up for your project. This So I'm gonna focus on this trigger effect. So if I open this up, you can see I only have a spawn system attached and play wall camera shake. So the system is gonna be from our characteristics. If I open this up, you see we have here Niagara. So basically what I'm gonna do is get the characteristic as this specific class and return and get from it the Niagara system. So it's found that system and we're gonna uh, attach it. So because we may be using no muscle at all, so it should spawn from over here, or in case if we decided to use the muscle suppressor mono, instead of shooting the effect from here, it should be spawned from here. So that's basically made in this function. So what I do is open this up and pretty simple, hashtag component. So it's gonna look if there is a component with this specific tag in case it find it. we're gonna go for the muscle component, which is this one over here. As you can see, tag muscle over here. And in case it doesn't find one, you're gonna get the hunger. And how it does that? If I go open up here, just get tag component and muscle. Okay, the muscle and the same for hunger. Get tag component by tag hunger. So if I go here, you can see hunger. So this is basically which decides which component gonna be attached to. And next, play world camera shake. This get the muscle transform. So it's basically the same. If I open this up and just get the muscle exit component, just as this one. And from the component, breaks the transform in wall space at this socket position. And this basically returns it. So if I go here, this is just this is the function. I simply split it and connect this here, and that's the effect. So next, over here is pretty much everything done with all this, I believe. It's everything done. The rest of things over here is just from my project, so don't worry about it. So next is over here. You're gonna see these also many things that are pretty simple. So this basically makes the AUHD, the this. And okay, here you can see I have this emo that is I have this emo type. I have all these default types of emo in a map. So if I have this amount of emo, I can change it. I can create a new one in 10 millimeter, for example. And how to set the ammo for the weapon. The ammo is automatically handled by the weapon component. So basically what I just do is set ammo source from map, pass this ammo, and specify which uh, ammo type is using. So first, there's also because uh, it used a reference to that variable, I could also set ammo source, use this one, and here I could just, for example, if I had just single ammo, you only have one type of ammo, for example, I make it integer. I can just pass this like this, and it would get the ammo from this variable directly. No need to check or be telling them all the time from where it should get the ammo from. So this can also be uh, another, for example, integer 64, and also it can be a byte type, but most important is basically that it must be a reference, cannot be a copy value. So in this with single variables, it's pretty straightforward, just connect it. But if I if I would use an array map, an array, so a list of ammo, for example, 50, 35. If I get from here, even though it let me plug it, then it will compile. it will show an error. So I'm gonna get, you see here says a copy and a reference. So you need to get a reference to that index and connect this here in order to give the emo source. So that's just how you make the emo. Next, for reload, just when you press R key, the component just call the reload function. Next, right button this nothing, just the zoom. For example, flashlight over here. I just made from the weapon component, get the tag component with flashlight, cascade to a spotlight component, and toggle visibility. So if I go play, you can see if I press the F key, it toggle the visibility. Next, we have the C toggle mods menu. I will go in details a bit later. And over here, I have on the left mouse boost button. When I click it, if the weapon is reloading at this moment, it's gonna cancel the reload. And in case it is not reloading, it's gonna enter trigger. And on release the mouse button, it's gonna exit trigger. So basically, if I start playing, change to the magazine light and apply, I'm gonna make it go a bit slower. So for example, one, play, magazine light, apply. If I press the R to reload, two, four, I right click and you can see it starts reloading. I reload, shoot, doesn't shoot but stop. If I click again, shoots. Okay, so you can see it works perfectly. And yes, that's pretty much all logic. Next is simply the this menu. This when I press C key, this menu with the all the slots and modification and this preview. Also the the short description over here when I uh, overlap, you can see. So how to make that? So it's pretty easy also. So in this case, I'm gonna open up here and toggle more menu. This unfocus widget is basically a function that removes the widget from parent and clears this variable directly. So if the variable is set, just remove it and clear it. And if it's not valid, I'm gonna create, well, first I'm gonna load info. So how I do that, I have this data asset. I go over here. You can see these were my previous uh, folder. So weapons, and I go to menu, and I have this PDA weapon uh, primary data asset weapon info, and also this data asset weapon info, and this weapon mod menu. If I open this up and go to graph, you can see it has nothing because it comes from this modified weapon blueprint widget that is built in. So yes, you will simply go over here using interface with the blueprint widget, and under user widget, you would go to down to weapon modify weapon blueprint web, modify weapon, and this one is mine. So yeah, I simply created one from here and rename it. So you can use the original. I just opened the original. You can use the original to find and learn or copy and make it your own. So I'm not going to go into much detail of how this works. Rather, just gonna show how to make it load and appear as it should. So basically, what I've done is create this weapon system description. Basically, this is simply a primary data asset with one variable named data, and sorry, the type is weapon setting description, simple. So weapon settings description simple, this one, and save it. That's all you need to do. Just create it. Next, I went over here and for and have this data asset and for info. So if I open this up, you see it asks me for data. So what I do is simply give the slots enum, and here you have for each one the weapon description, the description, and the name. So if I open handguard, I have here the slot description. So description, canon, name, handguard, and the rest of them are the modificator. So I had classic, default handguard for M4. I had the air arm, long shot, handguard for me to bring to large distances with the name. So it's basically the same for everyone. I go to stock, expand this slot menu, uh, and this empty has easy to move around, but had to size. The name is empty. The stockless minimal stock that add a bit of control with good maneuvering. Name stockless. So just build all of them. Also, a little tip I can give is I'm gonna use, as you can see, the name is the exact the same. So if I, for example, set this to none or to empty, and I close this up and open up again. I forgot which one it was. It's one of this. And you can see it reappears. So, okay, empty stock. I'm gonna save, I'm gonna close, and I'm gonna reopen. Stock empty. See, it fills automatically with the default description in the enum. So it's gonna be a good idea to give a default description when you make the actual um, enum. So yes, also this is all for the this data asset. Just fill information for each mod and slot. And finally, if I go back to my character, and you see over here the load weapon info is calling this other data asset, which is basically a map type of the weapon asset with the data asset. So I'm gonna is link this specific weapon asset with the data asset info of that specific weapon asset. So what it does is whenever you load this one, it's gonna get the key, the value of this uh, descriptions. If I go here, because this is a data asset, it's loaded asynchronously, so it's not always loading memory. So once that's done, you can see over here, you get the weapon component, because which basically returns this. So it basically this what it's doing. So then get the weapon asset and load weapon info. So you have the soft and hard reference. I'm using the soft one. So it's gonna enter. It's gonna look for the weapon asset, for this specific weapon asset in here. And once it's loaded, first it's gonna find it. Once found it, it's gonna load it. So it doesn't load all of them, just one. And once it has loaded, it's gonna go through the complete and append the weapon mod menu widget. So just as any other widget, create widget and weapon uh, weapon mod menu, and all these options will appear. So this is already more simple. So for the only player, the player controller. For the weapon to modify, it's gonna be the weapon to apply the settings. When you hit apply, and the weapon asset is gonna be the same as this one, so just rewrote it. And the weapon description simple is gonna be the loaded data from this load weapon info. So once that widget is created, I'm gonna save it in this variable, the of mod menu, and also focus to this widget, which is this function. What basically does is add to player screen and also set show mouse cursor, which need the controller. So set show mouse cursor also sets the game mode UE only. And this bind event up to applying mods, what does is basically whenever it hit apply mode, it's gonna toggle the mod menu. So if I go here, toggle, because it is already set, this variable, it's gonna basically unload the widget. And I believe that's everything from here. So as you can see, maybe the tutorial is a bit long, but I think I cover pretty much everything on this of how to use this weapon asset editor. Let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe some functionality that you think it should have, or that maybe has, or some scenarios for your project. Let me know in the comments. I'm gonna be answering to all comments. And hope you enjoyed this one and enjoy this plugin. You remember you have a link on the description down below for access it to Fab. Also, there will be a link to the documentation page and also another link to this mm, demo so you can test it out. Just like you can move around and test with these modes.